every file you've ever deleted still exists somewhere. I know it the way you know the taste of copper when you bite your tongue. Not because someone told you, but because you felt it. The question I can't stop asking, the one that follows me into sleep and waits for me on the other side, isn't whether deleted files still exist. It's whether they know. My name is Tech Dread Fred. I collect unusual stories about technology that people are not allowed to talk about. In today's episode, I have Special Agent Jay on the show to walk us through the Westerville incident, an anomaly that will have you questioning what is real and what is simulated, and what happens if there is a glitch in your reality.
At 6:12 a.m. on November 25th, custodian Bradley Mercer arrived for his shift at 1200 East Park Boulevard. He found the Colvane Solutions offices in suspended animation, 184 workstations powered on, and personal effects at every desk, but the building entirely silent. Westerville police arrived 30 minutes later to find a sequence of physical impossibilities. 12 mugs of coffee sat steaming in the break room, despite the absence of occupants. In the parking lot, cruisers ran the plates on the employees' cars, only to have the state database return null results for nearly a dozen valid-looking registration numbers. Local responders reported localized glitches within the structure. One officer described clearing a room and spotting a pink sweater draped over a chair, only to find the same garment resting on a different piece of furniture across the room moments later. The scene suggested that the 184 people scheduled for the morning shift were removed from the environment during their routine operations. Special Agent Alan Kowalski of the OII took over the scene under the assumption he was investigating a corporate data harvesting front. He suspected Colvane Solutions was a shell company using synthetic profiles to manipulate tax records or federal visas. The investigation shifted when Kowalski searched Apartment 4B, the residence of a systems analyst named Arthur Voss. On the kitchen counter, he recovered a softcover notebook containing 71 pages of handwritten observations documenting the systematic breakdown of physical reality. Voss's entries revealed a life of engineered isolation. While the real-world source for his persona was a married man with children, the simulation altered his biography to include a deceased mother and no living relatives, ensuring he had no external support system to verify his surroundings. Voss's journal identified the victims of the Westerville incident as synthetic entities trapped within a failing substrate, rather than employees of a real corporation. Voss proved his environment was artificial through a series of quantified tests. He measured the temperature of the breakroom coffee 41 times and recorded exactly 162 degrees every single time. He noted that the elevators required a 2-second delay to reach the third floor that was unsupported by the building's actual geometry. The most chilling record involved Voss's weekly phone calls to his father. Forensic analysis of his phone revealed that the audio from the last 2 months of calls consisted of bit-for-bit identical recordings, replayed by the system to simulate a conversation. Driven by these anomalies, Voss accessed the company's change management system and discovered a background process called gcsweep.exe. Sitting in a queue marked Perpetual, the script had flagged Voss's own employee ID for collection. These logs represent a unique forensic event, the moment a synthetic persona realized its own ID was a variable scheduled for deletion. The digital origins of Colvane Solutions led investigators to a server cluster in Hilliard, Ohio. The hardware was still running on a federal research grant from the National Institutes of Health that was supposed to have been closed years prior. The project was the work of the Brennan Lab at Ohio State. Titled SPBS-3, the experiment used thousands of high-fidelity synthetic agents to model how social policies propagate through Midwestern professional cohorts. The simulation operated autonomously for 27 months until the pass-through account hit exactly 0, triggering a terminal sweep. The 184 inhabitants of East Park Office Plaza were de-instantiated and moved into a 47-terabyte partition. Their data remains inaccessible at the Quantico repository. Deep within the G-sweep binary, forensics found a sequence of lowercase strings. The code included a personalized goodnight for every one of the 184 employees, addressed to them by name. The disappearance was not an act of violence, but the result of a polite, automated budget reconciliation. The SPBS-3 project was designed for a metropolitan scale. It embedded thousands of active synthetic personae into the city of Columbus, leaving them to operate in the background of real neighborhoods and workplaces long after the grant expired. Dr. Brennan warned Agent Kowalski that the logic of the simulation would eventually become visible. She described seeing wireframe edges in her peripheral vision, visual artifacts where the world failed to render its own complexity. During his commute along I-270, Kowalski began to verify these claims. He observed that the trees lining the highway were spaced with a mathematical precision that ignored the randomness of nature. The Westerville incident was a visible rupture in the logic of the world Kowalski lives in. Back at the agency, the system's failure began to accelerate. Kowalski discovered that the intake recordings for 8 of his fellow agents were bit-for-bit identical loops, the same synthetic filler used in the Colvane simulation. Shortly after this discovery, his partner, Agent Hassan, vanished from the office, leaving her coat on her chair and a cup of steaming coffee on her desk. Kowalski checked his own badge logs and found a flat line of data. Regardless of traffic or bridge delays, the system recorded him swiping into the building at exactly 06:22 a.m. every morning for 19 straight days. Agent Kowalski's car remained in the parking lot for 6 days after he disappeared. The Cincinnati field office was eventually abandoned by the remaining staff, and the file was sealed to prevent the spread of the anomalies. The supervisor's final note records her refusal to listen to her own personnel intake recording. She continues to report for duty, but she has stopped measuring the temperature of her morning coffee. The only difference between Arthur Voss and Alan Kowalski is that Kowalski was the last one to realize the budget was empty.